Hello and welcome to Addicted to Lacrosse. This is Season 2, Episode 10. Today is Sunday, March the 1st, 2015. My name is Graham Perro. With me, as usual, are Tyler Fitch and Melissa Daphne. We have our Q&A app running on our Google Plus page, so send us some questions and comments if you have any. And if that's not working, you can also get us at Twitter. We are at Lax Podcast, and will be checking that throughout the show as well. So, bunch of fun games to talk about this weekend. Couple of bits of news, so I guess we'll get to that first. I guess it's related to one of the games anyway. I believe it was on Friday, it might have been Thursday, I think it was Friday, that Anthony Cosmo suffered an injury. All we knew at the time was that it was an off-floor lower body injury. Bud Bailey of the Buffalo News later tweeted that he hurt himself shoveling snow. And there was no talk about what it was or how bad it was other than the fact that he wouldn't be playing this weekend. So David DeRuscio got his first career start. I think it was actually his first career game for the Bandits. We did find out later, Steve Bermel tweeted, I think, or he might have said it on the message boards, I don't remember which, that it was just a tweak and it wasn't a big deal. He wouldn't be out for very long, so it's not a season ender. So that's certainly good news for Cosmo and the Bandits. And I guess we'll get to more of that when we talk about the Buffalo game later on. Yeah, the Garrett Billings watch is still on, and there have been no sightings as far as I know. His agent tweeted a couple of weeks, or not, last week I guess it was, that he was ready to go. And since then, nothing. Billings has said nothing. The Rock has said nothing. There was no mention of him at the game this past weekend, I guess. But the Rock haven't tweeted anything. There's just nothing. There's no mention of this guy at all. And of course,
some mention.
Was there?
Yeah, Teddy Jenner says, like, where would Garrett Billings fit in with the Stealth when they put up 20 and they're 3 or 4 deep on righties? And it's kind of the same problem that Toronto has. Like, there's no place to put him. And apparently, Teddy says that what he hears is the Stealth would totally make an offer for him because you don't even have to trade for him right now. He's a restricted free agent. So somebody could just make him an offer and then the Rock have to match it within 48 hours, maybe 72 hours, or he can walk away. So it wouldn't even necessarily have to be a trade. It's a very interesting situation. I don't know why nobody isn't just doing that to press the Rock's hand and make them do something with it. Billings.
Yeah, when I said there's been no talk, I meant no official talk, like nothing from the Rock, nothing from the league. There's certainly been talk on Twitter from people going, what the hell? And yeah, so I did see a tweet, and I can't remember who it was, and I can't find it. I looked for it this morning. Somebody saying that Billings will only play for the Rock or the Stealth. And I don't know if that was a guess or if that was somebody who had actually talked to him or who it was. And like I said, I tried to find it again, and I couldn't. So as of now, Billings, as far as we know, is healthy. Has not signed a contract with the Rock. He is a restricted free agent, as you said. And there's been nothing else. So rumors continue, but that's all we've got right now.
I don't know, I think that's kind of interesting what you were just saying, Tyler, that no one has been forcing his hand. It's not like most of the teams are playing so fantastic that they couldn't potentially swap out a forward.
Especially elite forward, though, one coming off an injury. Same injury Nuge had, and he was never the same coming back. So I don't know if that's like something they know through the grapevine that, yes, he's cleared to play, but he may not be what he was before. Even though he wasn't really a dynamic goal scorer, he was either a sniper or a setup man, which can weather a knee injury a little bit better than what Nuge had to go through, where he was dodging guys constantly and no longer could.
All right. Speaking of the Toronto Rock, first game this weekend was Toronto at Edmonton. This was billed as possibly one of the better games of the year. Obviously the best team in the East against the best team in the West, or at least the number one team in the East versus number one in the West. And it was also billed as possibly a strong defensive game, and it kind of didn't end up that way, with Toronto winning 16-15 in overtime. with Rob Hellier getting yet another double-digit point game. I think it's at least his second of the season, as he got 10 points and Sanderson got 10 points as well. They are now number 1 and 2 overall in the league in scoring. I did not see this game. I tried and tried and tried, but I could not get anything working. So I was not able to watch any of this. I managed to follow on Twitter, which is slightly less fun. Tyler, it looks like you got to watch it, though.
Yeah, great game to watch. Definitely not the defensive battle that I agree we thought we could see from the two teams of established like this, but offensively, there was some great series. Edmonton had 3 goals in 18 seconds. So that's at a point in the third when Toronto had just put off 3 themselves in the space of 2 minutes. And like, oh, here comes Toronto. They came out of the half. They're just going to put this game away, and then Edmonton really responded and made it so that wouldn't happen. But Toronto did maintain a lead and carry it well into the fourth. Not well in the fourth, till 3 minutes into the fourth, and Edmonton had to go on a 4-goal run, the last 4 goals of regulation, to take this to OT. And then Rob Hellier got a shot that Bold got a piece of, but it ended up getting through anyways. Fun game. You got to think of how legit is Toronto right now, and they're really beating anybody, anywhere, in any way they need to, especially in close games, which they're not just blowing people out and unchallenged. They know how to go both ways, either blow people out or win close, and then that can really build the team for the long haul as the playoffs come around. They have close battles. Very, very good-looking team right now. And you're still on mute, Graham.
I'm still on mute. Sorry about that. Melissa, did you see this game?
Unfortunately, I did not. Friday was kind of a crazy night. I was doing the Polar Plunge Saturday, so I didn't get to. And then I discovered it was on NLL, so I wasn't able to. I can't even find highlights for it, so I'm kind of disappointed. This one sounds like it was a really good game. It's crazy to see how Edmonton started, and ever since Derek Keenan came back, they've just been playing so strong that it does make you wonder if we're kind of looking at the championship preview right here.
I did wonder, with Derek Keenan, if I'm not mistaken, won Coach of the Year last year. And after their start this year, and of course Keenan wasn't there, I thought, okay, well, he's certainly not going to be winning it again this year. But if he can take an 0-2 team that just didn't look like the Rush from last year and turn them back into the Rush, well, he's a pretty darn good candidate for Coach of the Year at this point in the season anyway.
I agree. Also, getting back to Toronto slightly, let's checking the stats. They now have the top 2 scorers in the league with Josh Anderson and Rob Hellier. They're a threat, and it's both sides of the floor equally covered. Like, go one way, they'll beat you over there because you got to cover this guy, and then it doesn't matter. Nobody's covering them. Both sides of the floor are just tearing people up. It's scary to think about playing them.
Okay, game number 2, Calgary and Rochester. Rochester won this one 12-11. It looked like they were going to run away with it for a little while, and then that didn't happen because Calgary ended up coming back, as Calgary seems to enjoy doing. And of course they came back, and I had the numbers up here. Where did it go? They only scored 6 goals in the second half, 2 of them by Sean Evans, and both of those were in the first 2 minutes of the third. And then Curtis Dixon scored 4. 1 in the third and 3 in the fourth, and that was it for the Roughnecks scoring in the second half. But it was enough to get them tied, and they stayed tied for 6.5 minutes or something. And then Cody Jamieson put it away with his second straight game-winning goal. I did not watch this one because I was watching the Colorado Buffalo game, which was on at the same time, so I can only go into a few details on what I've seen in the score sheet and such. Dane Dobie did not play in this game. This was the suspension that we discussed last week, and he appealed, he ended up losing the appeal, and so he sat out this past week, and he will sit out next week against Edmonton as well. Yeah, Melissa, I guess you did. Was this the one? No, you said you watched the Mammoth game, so you didn't see this one either.
Yeah, the Mammoth game was the only one I was able to watch this weekend since everything was on NL Live. But this definitely, it's interesting sometimes when you know what happened just to look at the stats after. I mean, Matt Vince just faced almost 60 shots. So the fact that Rochester really was able to kind of keep it as low scoring as it was is kind of a big deal. And for us not having seen Mike Poole in the past few games to see that he played the majority of the game again is kind of interesting. It seems like he has been struggling just a little bit this season. But it looks like Calgary's offense overall was doing pretty good, but just not quite. I mean, anytime you have a scoreless quarter or a near scoreless quarter, you're really putting yourself in a bunch. So they definitely started off, a little too slow. If they would have had a better first quarter, who knows, this could have been a different game. Did you see this one, Tyler?
Yeah, I was able to watch this one while waiting for the Stealth game to start, and really great matchup here. As I thought Calgary would come in very strong. I picked them to win because they wanted a rematch from their title series last year that they lost. I mean, they took it down to the end. They were within that goal there. They win all the hustle stats, 75 loose balls to 62. They won 2/3 of the face-offs, maybe even slightly more than that. Their shots, I don't even know how this is possible. I mean, you said they had 60 shots. It's 57 shots on goal. Rochester only had 41, so they outshot them 16 more times on the cage. Shots off cage were 31 for Calgary. So they took 88 shots in the game. Rochester only had 6 off the net, so they took 47 shots. 88 shots to 47, and a team with 47 wins. But I just that is so many shots they're just throwing it up. Like, I don't know how they can get that many shots off compared to their opponent. If they, I don't know, they're hustling after they get some loose balls, so they miss those shots and they maintain possession. But that is so many more that Vince, I don't know if he was the first star, but that he's in line there to be the first star.
Were they just maybe shooting at his chest? I mean, I know I've seen the Mammoth have nights like that where it seemed every shot was right, at the target on the chest.
I don't remember to that detail, but they had, if you look at the shots, not apples, but shots off goal, 31. Rochester had 41 on. There's only a 10-shot difference in that stat alone. I just can't believe how many shots. I don't know if Rochester even really let them take it. They were really getting Roughnecks kind of were here to take shots is what they did, and it wasn't all quality or anything or poor shots outside that made it easy for Vince. It was just a ton of shots. I talked about the scoring race in the last game with Hellier and Sanderson being 1-2, and Sean Evans is the number 3 scorer in the league right now, and he's played less games or the least amount of games of everybody, and he's averaging over 7 points a game. But you also see there's not a correlation between lighting up the scoreboard and getting wins. They're now 1-7, and they're going in to face Edmonton next week, which would be really interesting. But last thing is Roughnecks kept this game close. Until Cody Jameson got that last goal, they were in it. And I was thinking about all the dynamics of the locker room if Dane Doby is out, suspended, and the Roughnecks could go get a win. And they were in a position to do that. But that would have been really interesting to see it. We take that one guy off the floor and then things opened up or something like that, like the Stealth saw with Ratcliffe happening. Would have been really interesting to see happen. I mean, it was still a great game and close, but it wasn't a clear difference with Doby off the floor or not. That's my thoughts on that game. It was a fun game to watch.
All right, game number 3. I managed to watch this one, so it sounds like, I guess Tyler didn't see this. So I was going to say we had a game where all 3 of us watched it, but Buffalo 14, Colorado 11. And Melissa, I guess I'll let you talk about this one since it was the only one you saw.
Actually, I have a little bit to comment on. This one was interesting. The penalty box definitely, I think, was costly for Buffalo, and it was really close. It felt like the Mammoths were getting some better shots early on, and in the second half, Buffalo's defense kind of was able to stop that a little bit. I was definitely surprised when I didn't see Cosmo. I actually hadn't heard going into it that he'd had the injury. So seeing this goalie that I was completely unfamiliar with was a surprise, and it definitely made you wonder how he was going to do facing somebody like John Grant Jr. Because I think some of the goalies they've played against him so long now that some of them they're able to block his shots a little better. But it was one of those things in the fourth quarter, they just looked so flat that it was really frustrating. They went completely scoreless, and I'm trying to find the score sheet. Yeah. So they didn't score since about midway in the third quarter. They just didn't have anything left. And then Buffalo went on a nice little scoring streak. But other than that, the rest of the game it had been really back and forth, and it was a nice, exciting game. You definitely had certain players that seemed to be doing all the goals. Adam Jones had a lot. Drew Westervelt had quite a few. Alex Cato Hill had several for the Bandits, and it wasn't as distributed as sometimes we've seen with the Mammoth. It was very much a few players were taking most of the shots and getting most of the goals. John Grant Jr. was definitely finding the net quite a bit. He had 3 goals, 5 assists. Adam Jones had 3 goals, 5 assists. So it was definitely up there. Drew Westervelt had 4 and 3 assists. So it definitely wasn't as spread out, like I said. And then, what was it? No, I can't think of. I was looking to see how much John Grant Jr. actually was shooting, because usually his numbers are pretty high, but that's actually doesn't. I'm not saying the number. But it was definitely an exciting game. I think this was a true test, and as I expected, the Mammoth just didn't quite have it. They have a few really good quarters, sometimes only one good quarter, and they just can't seem to close it out when they're facing a more solid opponent. So, did you see this one, Graham?
I did watch this one. Only a couple of things. I thought the defenses looked really good in the first half. They were okay in the second half as well, but there seemed to be a lot of shot clock violations, and you've only got 3 seconds left to throw it somewhere near the net. And for a guy who had never played in the NLL, I thought DeRuscio played pretty well. He's no Cosmo, but he only allowed 11 goals, so that's not too bad. What else was I looking at? John Grant certainly likes to shoot the ball, doesn't he? Just looking at the numbers here, I only have the shots on goal, and Grant had 9, Jones had 12, and Westerveld had 11. Nobody else on the Mammoth had more than 5, but it did seem, and I noticed this in the fourth quarter, I guess, when the Mammoth were trying to get back into it after Buffalo took the lead, that Grant would get the ball, get in somewhere, try and get somewhere in close to the net, and then try one of his trick shots, whether it was behind the back or he never tried any through the legs, which he has done before. But it looked like when he was in close, he wasn't confident enough to actually just shoot it. He was trying to do something weird and fool the goalie. Whereas if he's further out, he's okay firing it from there, and he can score from anywhere he likes, really. But I do remember specifically one shot where he basically ran in towards the goal, deked around a couple of people, and then tried to kind of one-handed underhand the thing, and had no power on it, of course, and it was an easy save. But I don't think they were trying to kill a penalty. I don't think there was only a second left on the shot clock. There was no reason for him not to pass it out to Jones or Pollock or somebody else who was was further away and had a better shot. But instead, he decided to do this underhand thing. And I I mean, I doubt he's trying to get on the TSN highlights and that kind of thing during the game. It's not going through his mind, but it does seem that he tries a lot more of these weird trick shots than other people. And if they work, then it's beautiful, and holy cow, is this guy ever good. If they don't work, it doesn't. I don't see the advantage of it.
And I'd say that's actually a big complaint that I have had, and I know a lot of Mammoth fans have had, is when you see him do these trick shots, like I think it was last season, maybe the season before, the Mammoth actually were highlighting. So he was at different points in the stadium trying to hit things, or he was shooting them through little holes and things like that. And you see these really just, wow, that was an awesome trick shot. Why can't he seem to score as much during the game? And I think that's exactly one of the frustrations, is he'll take these unnecessary trick shots instead of just a really good, solid shot on net. And typically it's like he has 15 or 16 shots on net, whereas most of the players sometimes aren't even in the double digits. So.
All right.
I got a question for Melissa
Tyler.
about that. So this was the second straight week that Mammoth had to travel to the East Coast. Do you think that was made their fourth quarter performance drop off? It was just so much travel, and therefore their fatigue was kind of rooted in that?
You know, a lot of the guys I think actually do live a little more east. We don't have as many of them living locally as we did for a little while. So I don't know that it did have that much, but it definitely could have. I think the East and West teams are just very different in their style of play right now. And so the Buffalo Bandits might have just wore them down more than they have previously. I don't know. It's really hard for me to say, because you just see these moments where they look really great, and then you see the Mammoth that we've kind of come to expect. I just don't feel like they play four quarters anymore. That they try and sit on a lead when there's plenty of time for the other team to come back. And those that do live here and play here, the high altitude really does have an impact. So if you're going down to sea level, you actually think your stamina would be better from even just playing here as much as they do. So that would almost be a benefit more playing on the East Coast. So I think it may have been something else.
All right.
Another interesting aspect to this game was the return of John Tavares, who was out for a number of weeks. But he returned, got I meant to look there. Where did it go? Goal and 3 assists, so he didn't have an outstanding game. And I honestly had to say I didn't notice him an awful lot. Now he doesn't have the energy of a Mark Steinhaus, who is just everywhere. But you can't just ignore John Tavares, 46 or not. You gotta send somebody to look after him, and because he's just such a smart player. He doesn't have to be at his absolute physical peak to be dangerous. He knows the game so well. He can score from wherever he wants to. And he is obviously a great passer as well. So if anybody is anywhere close to open, he knows where to get the ball to get to them, and can feed anybody. So when you've got people like Dane Smith and Ryan Benesh to feed, then you want to keep the ball away from Tavares as much as you can. But like I said, that said, he didn't stand out to me that he was having a really great game. But again, it was only for his first game back.
The NLL also tweeted out about him as his return, he was the first NLL player to play in 300 games. And I thought the use of first there was interesting. They even highlighted it. It's like first, he's the last. Nobody's gonna play 300 games. Just it's another notch in his belt that's unobtainable. Johnny Palace started at 18. I don't see him playing 300 games even. I would be amazed. So it's funny in my mind, the use of first, where they should just be celebrating his achievements as opposed to qualifying them.
The next closest.
I don't see anyone coming up.
Sorry,
Graham.
the next closest active player is Colin Doyle, who's at 255. So assuming he recovers from his injury and plays next season, he would have to play all of next season and then all of at least the 2 after that. So yeah, I mean, we're talking another 3 or 4 full seasons from Colin Doyle before he would get to 300. Josh Sanderson's at 239. Well, he was before the season started, so he's at 247 or something.
I guess
But
that's
again,
kind of obtainable. Also, the first few years Tavares played, he only had probably a 12-game regular season, so he was losing 4 games a year. There's been changes. Now guys are doing 18 in a year, so they can kind of make up ground. I guess, boy, I was really positive about my saying that's it, but there's changes in the regular season that maybe it will be possible.
yeah, like I said, Sanderson's up near Doyle. Both of those guys are in the late 30s. I think Doyle's 39, Sanderson's about 37. I can't remember if they're the same age or not, but both in the late 30s. So, I mean, if they play till they're 42, 43, then they could probably do it. Whether they'll play that long is a different question altogether. And after those guys, you get down to Scott Self has played 207. I would not have put him in that category. He's been around for a while. Dan Dawson's at 205. John Grant's at 203. So those guys have another 100 games to go. So that would seem unlikely again, unless they play till they're 45.
Well, and when you look at how few players are even making it to 40 these days, it definitely, I think John Tavares is going to have a lot of records hold up for many, many, many years.
That is very likely. Game number 4, I think, was probably the most interesting game this weekend anyway, for a number of reasons. First of all, a goalie scoring a goal is pretty awesome. It's only happened, I counted earlier today, and now I don't remember. He's the 9th goalie to do it, but Rob Blasdell has 4 of them, and I think Pat O'Toole has 3. So I guess there's been about 15 or so goalie goals in the NLL in 25 years. So that was pretty cool. And a goalie issue for the Swarm, I don't think I even said what game this is, but it's Vancouver over Minnesota. But for the Swarm, Brody McDonald's wife was in labor, so he was away, and they don't have another goalie on their roster, like most teams don't. So Corbin Tao agreed to be the backup goalie. I have no idea if he has any goaltender experience. Maybe he played goaltender in junior hockey or something 7 years ago, and that was as close as they could get, and he agreed to do it. So he was the backup goalie, but I'm pretty sure they basically had to dress a backup goalie just in case Zach Higgins got shot or something like this. But they had no intention of going to Corbin Tao. And that became obvious when Higgins was not having the greatest game ever, but they couldn't really do much about it. And he ended up giving up 20 goals. Was it only 20? Did he give up all 21? No, just 20, because I guess there was an empty netter. Of course there was an empty netter in there, because Mr. Richard scored 1. Anyway, thanks to the CBA for that one. The current CBA that the NLL players are playing under restricts the roster sizes to 18, 16 runners and 2 goalies. Their entire roster is only 20, so they have to basically have 2 healthy scratches per game. But because there are so few players, nobody's going to keep a third goalie on their roster. And as far as I can tell, the only way they could have done that for Brody McDonald if they if they were to release him and sign another goalie, and then presumably reverse that later on. But I don't think you're allowed to have a goalie on your practice roster. So they really had nothing to do with McDonald other than release him, and I'm sure they didn't want to do that. So thanks to the CBA, they really had no choice but to dress a runner as a backup goalie.
Is that actually new under this current CBA? Because I know in years past they were allowed to have a goalie, because there's been a few years that the Mammoth actually did have 3.
The CBA is new as of last season, the 2013 or 2014 season. Is it 2014? I think it was new as of the 2014 season, and that reduced the roster sizes from 23 to 20, and the active for the number of people you could dress in a game from 20 to 18. So I think it was unusual, but not that unusual for teams to keep a third goalie in there. But once they reduce that down even further, having a third goalie in there doesn't make any sense because there just isn't enough space now.
Well, it may have just been the Mammoth, because for a few seasons we did, ever since we had that really, like, just totally freak accident with Palador, where the first 30 seconds of the game, like the first shot on net, it took him out because it broke his occipital bone, and we lost him for the whole season. We've just had those random goalie, what in the world is going to happen? So I think the Mammoth were keeping 3 for a little while there. So you could be right about with them actually cutting the roster size. Nobody wants to waste that valuable spot, but I don't think it states that they can't. I think it's just a matter of moving people around.
Yeah, that could be. It may not be disallowed to have a goalie on the practice roster, but just nobody does it because they just don't have the space. And yeah, I guess playing your backup goalie is rare enough as it is. Having to play your backup goalie and have a third goalie on the roster is even more rare. That's why this is so strange, because it's not like this was a freak accident that they couldn't have foreseen. I mean, Brody McDonald's wife was in labor. She's obviously been pregnant for a good number of months. They could have easily foreseen that this was going to happen at some point. Now, for all I know, she went into labor a month and a half early, and so they knew it was going to happen, but they thought they had some extra time before it happened. I don't know the details. But anyway, moving on. This was a pretty exciting game, not just for any point. And they were behind by 5, 6, 7 goals for the majority of the game. But every time you thought Vancouver was just going to put it away, Minnesota would score 2 or 3 and just say, "Hey, we're not out of this yet." Kind of put it away at that point. But despite the fact this was a 21-15, like a 6-goal difference, it didn't seem like it was a blowout, or it seemed like it was on the verge of becoming.
Yeah, that was a perfect description. I mean, it kind of had the same result as the last Stealth home game when the Roughnecks were in town, and Roughnecks always kind of pulled back into it, but at least the Swarm, I don't want to pile on Roughnecks, but they didn't whine about it. They were getting worked, and they just let the game play on, and they kept battling, and they tried to fix it themselves versus find a blame for it. So, yeah, for the Swarm to do that, boy, I don't know much about their defense. I really thought that they should have stepped up, knowing that Zach Higgins had no other option but to be in the cage, and the Stealth goals early on, there were guys with hands free, and there were a lot of great shots, just pinging corners or bottom corners as well, or guys getting in close where it's not Higgins' fault when the guy's that close and he's scoring goals. And so Higgins was getting shelled, and they weren't going to pull him, but I think mentally he had to be just crushed at the end of that first quarter, down 7-3, and he's like, "This is it, guys. It's only me, and I'm getting worked. A little help, please." And he never got it, and it was a bummer for him to have to go through that experience, knowing that he had no backup. Stealth were fun to watch, though. Cliff Smith was just great. He got in a situation where he just knew that nobody was going to stop him when he wanted to, so he got some goals early on. He set up a lot of goals. He had a great night. Johnny Palace only had 5 assists, no goals, but it was all that was needed. I think he's finding a groove, even though they really pushed him leading up to the season as the guy, and he's going to be here to score. It's like they don't need him to. He can do the same thing he did in Rochester, where he just fills a role, and it works. And they have Corey Smalls come in and lighting it up, and it's great. He had 4 goals, 5 assists, I think. At least he had 4 goals. And he's been a great addition to the offense. Everything is clicking, and I love watching the team play when they can do this. Not obviously, because we haven't talked about it, but it's been talked about on Twitter. This is the most goals the Stealth have scored since they were the Albany Attack. So They really could just go out and do whatever they wanted last night. It was an incredible match. Let's see if there's anything else I missed here. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I think there's 21 goals. There could be a lot more to say, but it was a team effort. It was really spread out. Nobody had more than 4, I don't think. And
Tyler Digby had 5.
okay, Digby had 5. Thank you. Yeah. So it was really spread out, lots of opportunities for everybody to make it happen, and everybody played their role, and it was great. Didn't even have any transition scoring. Let's see, Cliff's forward, Digby's forward, Reese forward, Ilya had 1, Conrad Chapman had a nice little breakaway, totally felt like Mike Grimes out there, 23 and all. Got a ball on a rebound in the far end and just ran the whole thing up, buried the shot, it was perfect. And then and Corey Small, Joe McCready, super grinder. He gets such timely goals and works hard for them. And Tyler Richards had the 1 goal. So not a lot of transition. Ilya returned after being gone last week. I was glad to see him come back quickly from whatever reason. He missed the Roughnecks game. But he was a big difference maker. Tyler Garrison was out again. I was a little worried about that. But I guess Ilya made up for it. And great game. Good job, Stealth.
I wrote a blog post this morning about the whole Garrett Billings thing, and one of the things I said was if the Rock wanted to make a trade with the Stealth, first of all, they better get a whole ton back for somebody like Garrett Billings. But so I was thinking, I mean, the Rock doesn't really need anything. I mean, their offense is one of the best in the league. Their defense is one of the best. They have a great 1-2 goaltender combination, so they really don't need anything. So just give us a whole bunch of first-round draft picks for Garrett Billings, and we're all happy. But if they don't want to do that and want to get actual live bodies back, well, we'll take Reese Dutch. That'd be all right. But again, first of all, no, that's not going to happen. Second of all, Dutch is a righty, Billings is a righty, so if the Rock are trying to trade a righty for a lefty, that's obviously not going to solve their problem. So we'll take Tyler Digby instead, but of course he's a righty as well. But I would be totally happy with Tyler Digby on my team. I say this every time about Digby. He's just a big guy, and there are big guys in the league. There are certainly guys in the league that are bigger than Digby, but he just looks big. Not even just tall, just a generally large guy. But he can shoot. He can. I don't know. He's just got everything. I don't know how fast he is. Maybe he's not that fast, but when you're that big and you're that good a scorer, you don't really need to be fast. You guys got Ilya Gaich for that, so.
Yeah, I was trying to think of like just draft pick compensation for Garrett Billings. You said 3, and I'm thinking pre-injury it's 3. But if I haven't seen him play since he was injured, I wouldn't go that high if I was the Stealth.
That's a fair point as well. Yeah, I guess I'm assuming he's coming back from injury and he's right back where he was, which is a bit of a tall order, I think. For this season particularly, maybe for next season once he's got some games this season and then has a full off season of conditioning and that kind of thing, he can get back to where he was. But like you said, that's not how it worked for Ethan Iannucci. And he turned into a pretty good player, but he was just a shadow of what he was in Philadelphia. And if that happens for Garrett Billings, then yeah, 3 first-rounders for somebody that used to be really good and is now not bad is kind of overpaying, I guess.
Going back to Digby, he's actually listed as being 6'3" and 230 pounds. So, yeah, I'd say that's a pretty big guy, especially for a forward. I don't think you really have that many of them that are quite that tall and big. So I throw that out there since we had just discussed it.
Yeah, he was noticeably bigger than everybody on the floor, I felt like yesterday. Even Kyle Matisse, who's a big guy they call Moose, Digby looked big.
Yeah, there are certainly bigger guys there, and Brody McDonald comes to mind, but he's a goaltender, and a lot of the other really big guys that you think of, the Morgan boys, where I think the guy who was 6'8" was not even the tallest. I can't remember which was which. There were 3 of them. they were all defenders as well. So, I mean, having a really big defender is certainly a plus, and the Rock got a couple of those this offseason, and that certainly helped them. But yeah, it's a little less common to have a forward who's that big.
Speaking of that, I wonder whose gear Corbin Tao is wearing, because Corbin's like 5'10", maybe, not a big guy, and Brody McDonald's 6'10", so he probably wasn't lining up in Brody McDonald's gear on the bench. It's kind of just random thought. Like, not only did they have to find somebody willing to be the goalie, they had to find pads for him.
And yeah, I guess borrowing Brody McDonald's equipment is something that almost nobody could do. Yeah, I don't know if Higgins has a second set that he sets aside for just such an occasion. I don't even know what jersey Tao wore. Obviously, he can't wear his own jersey over those pads, so he'd need a goalie cut jersey. And I don't know if he was wearing one that had his name on the back or had no name on the back or anything. I don't even remember them showing that many views of him on the bench. I would have expected a few more, but I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah. Speaking of jerseys, I was down in San Francisco this week, and my old buddies gave me a nice little old Stealth. It's from an
Nice.
It's either 04 or 05. I think it's 05 because I think I have a Ryan Boyle signature, and he was a rookie in 05. But he handed it on to me because the team's gone and been sitting in his closet, and he was like, you know what? I was trying to give it to somebody, and I realized you're the person. I was like, thank you. So I got a nice little Memento Ninja jersey. They're few and far between.
Nice.
Yeah. You're on mute, Melissa.
Yes, I noticed that. Ding mute. I was very happy that I was able to acquire a Stealth jersey with the Ninja, because it just, when they went to just the target on the chest, it just never had quite the same feel. Although it seemed like when the goalies were wearing that target, that's where everybody wanted to shoot.
Yeah.
But that Ninja was just so cool. I was very happy when I got one of those in my collection.
Me
I actually
too.
have a San Jose Stealth jersey as well, so that's one of the few that probably all three of us have.
I've got a Rock jersey.
Well, Melissa, I think, has the biggest collection, so...
I have a
whatever.
Blackout Rock jersey, and yes, my collection is outrageous.
I don't think I talked about it last week, but that Superhero Night Rock jersey a week ago was awesome. It was one of the coolest jerseys I've ever seen. They had the cityscape, people flying through there. It looked so good.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that one. It was all right. I'm to be honest, I don't think I'm a big fan of any of the Rock third jerseys that they've had over the years. They try to do a different one every year, and some of them are okay. Some of them I haven't been a big fan of. That one was not bad. Though I do have to say the Rush jerseys that they wore on Friday's game were pretty slick. And if I was clever, I'd have put up a picture of one of those, but I don't have one handy. All right, so the next section to talk about are our predictions for last week. And did I go over this? Yes, I did. I was 3-1, only missing the Toronto-Edmonton game. In fact, all three of us missed the Toronto-Edmonton game, and all three of us got the Vancouver game correct. So I went 3-1, bringing me to 14-19 overall. Tyler went 2-2, bringing him to 14-19 overall. So we are in a tie for second place. And Melissa also went 2-2, and she's
Looks
only
like
a game ahead of us.
3-1 though. She has the same picks as you.
How did that happen? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, Edmonton's the only one I missed last week. Hey, I can do bad enough choices on my own. Don't knock me down here.
I'm going to have to call an
Something
auditor
weird
the
there.
entire season now, Graham. It's highly suspect as you're trying to claw back into things.
My sincere apologies. Melissa did indeed go 3-1 last week, and she is okay. That's what it is. I didn't update this document. All right, so I went 3-1. Melissa went 3-1. Tyler went 2-2. Overall, I am now 17-20. Tyler is 16-21, so I'm still a game ahead, and Melissa's a game ahead of me at 18-19. So all three of us are below 500, but only a game apart. And so next week we will make that up, except I'm 3 games below 500 and there's only 2 games, so I can't do that. Anyway, so next week there are only 2 games, like I just said. Toronto is playing in Colorado, and for what, maybe the third time ever, Melissa, something like that?
That will be the third time. They played here for it wasn't even a true game. They played, I think that was the exhibition game after the Avs game. They played a preseason game here, and I think this is the first actually regular season game. If not, it's the second regular season game. So they've played here a maximum of 4 times, I would say. So yeah, it is a rare thing to have Toronto here. The last time Bob Watson was still playing for them, I believe.
So it was a good couple of years ago then. I do remember listening to a Rock Mammoth game on the radio many, many years ago, and it might have been that first game, actually. And I remember it going to overtime, and some guy I'd never heard of named Brian Langtree scored the game-winning goal in overtime. And he went on to have a pretty decent career, if I remember correctly. So I'm going to go for Toronto for this game. They're in first place overall. They're 8-1. They're kicking butt left, right, and center. Yeah, I see no reason why they can't handle the Colorado Mammoth. Calgary, Edmonton. I got to go for Edmonton in this one, and it does look like all three of us are making the same picks again this week. But basically, at this point of the season, looking at what the teams have done, Toronto versus anybody, I'm going with Toronto. Edmonton versus anybody, I'm going with Edmonton. And of course, Toronto versus Edmonton, I got wrong. So, yeah, so I'm going with Toronto and Edmonton next week. Melissa, what about you?
I'm also going with Toronto and Edmonton. As I've been saying for the past few weeks, I don't think the Colorado Mammoth were actually playing as good as some of their opponents were making them look. So in this game, I think Toronto, honestly, is probably going to have an easy win. I'll be surprised if they actually don't win. It will make me wonder what happened. Did somebody get the flu? I really do. I think Toronto has this game just practically every day this season. It just doesn't bode well for Colorado, and especially as tight as Toronto has been playing. And having played Edmonton last week, perhaps they actually are a little more beat up, so maybe that will be good for the Mammoth. But I will be very surprised if Toronto doesn't take this. And with Calgary and Edmonton, there's no way you could really put your money on a team that's won one game this season against a team that has really turned around and is looking like they're going to be the top dog in the West. What about you, Tyler?
All right. The only chance I see for Colorado to take this game is to jump out and take advantage of the fact that they're finally home and Toronto's on the road for the second time in a week, or a week or 2 weeks, as they tend to call it. So they could have a little bit of, I don't know, fatigue from traveling, and it's a Friday night game instead of the usual Saturday. But I don't see it happening. 7-1 Toronto, they go on the road, go at home, win big, win close games, doesn't matter. Whatever the situation is, Toronto's in good shape to take it, so I'll pick Toronto. And then when you look at the standings, I realize all three teams in the West that are up there, Edmonton, Colorado, and the Stealth, have 4 wins right now, but Edmonton only has 3 losses, so they get the half-game lead. I really want Calgary to win this in that sense, so that the Stealth could be tied for first. And even though they're kind of playing 500 ball and look mediocre at times and look great other times, they'd be in first place. That's a good situation to be for the Stealth. But no Dane Doby. Edmonton, frustrated after last week. They can take it out on their biggest rival. Everybody is the Roughnecks' biggest rival, but Edmonton's biggest rival is the Roughnecks. They get them at home. They can really just do a number on them, and I think Edmonton can really win that game pretty handily.
All right, so it looks like all three of us are making the same picks, which means that Melissa will still be in first place after next weekend. And me and Tyler will be fighting it out for second place. Okay, that's it for this week's Addicted to Lacrosse show. Our website is addictedtolacrosse.com, and you can find all of our archived episodes there, including a bunch from last year, which would be interesting to watch now, just to see what kind of predictions we made that went horribly awry. If you want to send us some comments or questions, you can find us in various ways. Feedback at addictedtolacrosse.com will get to us. We're on Facebook as well, facebook.com/laxpodcast, and at laxpodcast on Twitter as well. And that's about it. This has been another episode of Addicted to Lacrosse. For Tyler and Melissa, I'm Graham. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next week. If I can